Hi everyone, DevotedOblivion here. To commemorate the upcoming release of Fire Emblem Engage, I thought it would be nice if I rank all of the Fire Emblem games, including the spin-offs, to celebrate. So, things to note before I begin is that this is my own personal opinion on the games, so this is entirely based on my own experience. Second is that I will be talking about some spoilers for the games I definitely finished and spent a considerable amount of time on, so there will be unmarked spoilers on those games. And lastly, you can agree or disagree with me, just keep everything civil in the comments, and I would be also interested in hearing your guys' thoughts on each of the games as well too. Anyways, with that out of the way, let's begin. So, to start things off is the first Fire Emblem, Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light. I owned this game on the Switch when it got released overseas for the anniversary, and I never finished it. It's the first Fire Emblem. I didn't finish it. I only played a few chapters, but I do want to actually finish the game and see how it all started. The game definitely does seem pretty dated, but it is the first Fire Emblem, so I'll cut it a little bit of slack. And I don't have too much to say since I haven't finished it, but I probably will get back and finish this at some point. Alright, moving on is gonna be Gaiden, the original game that Echoes is based on. So this serves as actually a sequel or side story towards the first Fire Emblem, and this will go into Never Played. I do own Echoes. I did spend a lot of time in Echoes, but this is Gaiden we're talking about. So with Gaiden, I never played, but I do want to play it eventually at some point, and hopefully it gets re-released just like how Shadow Dragon and Blade of Light did, but if not, it's not too bad. I think Echoes definitely did improve on it from the footage I remember reading about or seeing. And I do want to see what the changes Echoes made compared to Gaiden. And it would be nice, but it's not like a big problem if I don't get to play it. And even if it's through emulation at some point, but I want to stray away from emulation as much as I can for these older games. Alright, anyways, moving on. Fire Emblem 3, Mystery of the Emblem. This never made it overseas, like a lot of the earlier games, so this will go to Never Played. It's Japanese release only, so of course we didn't get our first taste of Fire Emblem until 7, so I don't really have interest in this, because this actually serves as a sequel to these two games as well, just due to characters and plot, and it's just, I don't have any interest in playing. So, with that, let's just move on. Genealogy of the Holy War. This one is also never played, because, once again, Japanese exclusive, but I really want to play it. I've heard many good things about Genealogy of the Holy War, and I really want to play it because of all the good things I've heard about, especially the story. I remember there was a bit of time where I spent actually reading what the story is about because of everything that is happening in Heroes with, the inclusion of more Genealogy of the Holy War characters and why they have this or that and such. And I definitely want to play it because the story interests me, especially since the events from the first generation affect the second generation. Basically, your kids, your marriage, your the pairing. I think this is the first game to introduce skills as well too, and the weapon triangle, I believe. Not 100% sure on that. And the cast, if I remember correctly, is pretty big, but that's because each character has a lot of depth to them, just because you have to support them or marry them in order to get the kids for the second generation. I think it's something like that. I definitely wish that I get to play this game even if it's from emulation later on, even though I said I want to stray away from it. So if this game does get a remake, Echo style remake, I would definitely prefer to play the remake over this original, unless I really want to go back and experience this. If it ever gets a remake, I really hope it gets one. I think it's long overdue. And hopefully that comes after Engage. Okay. Next is Thracia 776. This is also never played because it's a Japanese release only, and I do have interest in playing because this takes place, Leaf's journey takes place in the middle of second generation alongside Salif's journey, Salif's story. So if I'm not mistaken, since I know they both make sort of appearances or cameos in each other's games, and I know that Thracia is also one of the hardest games in the series too. I don't know why, but if I'm not mistaken, I think Thracia was or is still considered one of the hardest games in the series. The question now is, how would this game be stated for a remake, since it happens in Yggdrasil alongside Genealogy of the Holy War, so I wonder how they would remake this when the time comes, if they ever decide to. Would they bundle it together, or would they keep the two separate? I definitely think they should bundle it together just so that it keeps the whole region itself, or continent, not region. So I think it just would end up being better marketing. So even if I have to wait 5 years or something for it to come out, I'll gladly take it. Alright. Next is Fire Emblem 6, The Binding Blade. This game I actually played since I actually have a GBA emulator from years ago. And I did play this a few years ago, and this will go into the D tier. I think this is one of the worst games. It's definitely C or D tier for me. So basically, I didn't realize it at the time, but I did not finish the game completely, as in I did not get all the sacred weapons, which means I missed out on sort of the true ending, the true final chapter, which definitely sucked. Since I was playing this game, and because I played Heroes, I was like, where's Eden? And I never saw her. And only after that did I go and search and see that Eden appears as the final boss only if you have all the sacred weapons. And I didn't have all the sacred weapons because I missed some of the Gaiden chapters that I didn't even know existed. So that definitely did suck. So I think I will want to come back to Binding Blade eventually. Other aspects of the game was, from what I remember playing, Roy sucks. He hits like a wet noodle, and the only way I even got to finish the game was I funneled everything into Lilina, and she became the sole carry in pretty much every chapter after a certain point. I forgot when, but she was a one-woman army. Most of the cast also doesn't seem memorable enough to me, too. There's only a few characters. I'm not going to mention their names because I can't remember off the top of my head, but a lot of them aren't memorable enough. Like, I think the ones that are in Heroes, say for a few, are definitely recognizable and well known, but I think it's just me. I do want to say that the music was pretty good for a GBA game, or for the first GBA game, and that the sprites, there's something about sprite work that definitely make the game seem a little charming as well. But I think this is definitely D tier for now, maybe even up to C tier as I keep going on. Okay. Next is Fire Emblem 7, The Blazing Blade, the first game to make it to the West for us, and I'm gonna put this in the A tier. It is the first game in the West, so because Japan doesn't know, how the reception would be. They made the Lin tutorial mandatory for us Westerners, and I think it was a good choice since not everyone knows about this genre of game and the gimmick of Fire Emblem of permadeath. And since it's Lin's story, I think everyone does come back for the actual main story, which is nice. And I think that definitely helps bridge the gap of people being newcomers and the veterans. I remember finishing both Eliwood and Hector's story. Eliwood because he's mandatory, and then only on a second playthrough onward you can choose between Eliwood or Hector. And it's only from a second playthrough onward that you can also skip Lin's story, which is also nice. The cast, they're pretty memorable, pretty iconic. Of course, your three lords. You got Nurgle. You also have the other morphs. You also, of course, everyone should remember Nino and Jafar. Like, a lot of the cast is pretty memorable, and I actually like it. The music slaps pretty hard too. Like, the early bits of the map theme, the battle music, isn't that bad, but it's only when the stakes are raised in the second half of the game, I believe, that it really gets going with the music, and that's really good. I do want to say that this is an improvement over the Binding Blade, and even though in the story this serves as a prequel to Binding Blade, it came out after, so it definitely improved on everything that made Binding Blade pretty much suck. I think I wouldn't mind a remake of both of these games in the future, just probably after remaking Genealogy of the Holy War and Thracia, and then I can pretty much accept a remake of this, since I wonder how it will look and it would be on modern hardware. Alright, next, the last GBA game, The Sacred Stones. I'm gonna put this in a B tier. It's not bad per se. I think it's just a slight step down from 7. I believe the cast is just slightly smaller. I don't remember it that well, since the characters, I think a good chunk of them are forgettable, and the characters that really got mentioned or brought up in the story are definitely like the most recognizable as well too. I definitely remember finishing both Erica and Ephraim's routes, and another reason why I want to put this in a B tier is the Tower of Valny. Because the Tower of Valny exists on this open or world map, not open world, but just a world map in general. It gives you the opportunity to grind, and that could definitely break and destroy the game balance, since now your units are going to be too over leveled, too strong, that every chapter it's just going to go by in a breeze. I will say Ephraim's story is definitely, or Ephraim's route is definitely a good one, and it is harder than Erica's, and I think that should be the go-to path to take, but that's really up to the player's choice. I definitely think that their use of a darker shade of color that contrasts previous games definitely fits the tone of the game too. And speaking of tone, the music is just overall great, and I think the most iconic song, Truth, Despair, and Hope, is pretty much the best song in the game too. I think that if the Tower of Valny didn't exist, it'd probably be an A tier, maybe even S, but definitely A. But because the Tower of Valny exists, it definitely brings it down a bit because of the game balance, since one can just over level the units and pretty much just make the game a breeze. Okay, moving on. Path of Radiance, the only game on the GameCube. And I will be putting this in Never Played. I really want to play this game. I have a GameCube and I really want to play this game, except that a copy goes for at least $100 Canadian, and it really sucks. I want to try and not emulate this game too, since I actually want to own a physical copy of it. So I am sort of setting myself up with hard restrictions. I do want to play this game because I want to know why Ike is overall fan favorite, and well, of course we know that he's the Smash representative as well too, but I definitely want to see why he's just overall fan favorite. You know, we like Ike and all that. I'm mostly spoiler free in Path of Radiance too. Like, I try to not indulge in the story from media as much because I want to experience this game pretty much as blind as possible, so with as little information as possible. And the same goes with Radiant Dawn, which I can mention now, is also never played due to similar reasons of Path of Radiance. I don't have a Wii, but I do have a Wii U, so thank you, backwards compatibility. Radiant Dawn, once again, is also the same thing as Path of Radiance, where a copy is just too expensive and scarce that the last I tried to look for one, which is like a few years ago, I think Radiant Dawn is also going for at least 100 Canadian in some of the marketplaces that I've checked. It is a sequel to Path of Radiance. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I did a little bit of reading to see when this takes place, and I think I was about to say 2 years, but that definitely does not sound right. But it does take place sometime after Path of Radiance, so Radiant Dawn would be played after Path of Radiance for the story. I know that there's a translation error in the game where, for difficulty, it was supposed to be normal, hard, lunatic, but someone translated it as easy, normal, hard, which sort of made the game a little bit unplayable for people who initially got the game who doesn't know this. And I definitely want to try not to emulate the game to play it as well, just because it's similar reasons to Path of Radiance, basically. I also want to know why Micaiah is one of the worst protagonists, one of the worst lords out there. Like, I don't know why she's one of the worst. No, I don't know the reason. Like, people just speak out of her, and I don't know why. So maybe once I eventually play these two games, I can see why Ike is a fan favorite and Micaiah is just a bad lord. I don't know what else to say, just trying to be spoiler free for these two games, but if they do get re-released, I would like it to be released together as, like, you know, a dual pack on the Switch. Like, even if it's just a port, I'll take it. I don't expect a full-on remake of this, probably just a fixed translation error for Radiant Dawn, but really, I don't expect these two games to get remade. So, port would be nice, but that'll be years down the line, I guess, if it ever comes to fruition. Okay, next is Shadow Dragon, the first game on the DS, remake of the first Fire Emblem. Will go alongside the first Fire Emblem, both Shadow Dragons, right next to each other and never finished. I own this on the Wii U Virtual Console, and I played a few chapters. It doesn't seem that bad. I do want to go back to it eventually to actually finish the game. And I think one of the reasons I just dropped it is, like, I just got a little bored or just lost a little interest in it. But then again, I think it was during a time where I was trying to find a game to play, either new or a replay of an old game. So it might be that. I do remember that the portraits are a little awkward. Like, Marth's portrait in Shadow Dragon, compared to the game after New Mystery of the Emblem, is like, what happened with the art team that decided to ship the portrait for Marth in Shadow Dragon? It definitely doesn't feel like it's Marth. Like, he's just a little too too wide, too chubby in Shadow Dragon compared to New Mystery of the Emblem. But the art style is not a deal breaker, which is why I dropped it, but it just makes it look awkward. That's it. And since I already brought up New Mystery of the Emblem, I'm gonna put this in Never Played. For some reason, this is a Japanese exclusive game, and it's a remake of the third game, Mystery of the Emblem, and I don't really have any interest in playing it, really, since it serves as a sequel because it's a remake of the third game, and it definitely is, from what I remember seeing, a step up from Shadow Dragon, but I just don't have interest in playing this, really. There's not much else to say. I just heard about it, I read a bit about it, but I have zero interest in it. Even now, I don't have any interest in playing the game. Alright, moving on. Fire Emblem 13 Awakening, a game that saved the series. And I will put this into the A tier. I do own a copy of this game, a digital copy. I remember I played the demo, and my brother helped buy it, not just for myself, but for himself too, since we both played the demo and really liked it. This game was just great. I really enjoyed it. The story was pretty good. I like how the story was technically set into different arcs, so like the first few chapters, I think it's like until chapter 9 or 10, 9, 10, 11, somewhere around there. It was the Ulysses versus Gangrel, or Plegia, I think. And then after that, it was versus Walhart, and then it's versus Grima. I already forgot how you say it. But yeah, the story was great. The characters are very memorable. Like half of the cast is just memorable in their own ways, and I really like it. I didn't realize that S supports led to more paralogs, which led to recruiting more kids. So I had to marry everyone off that I didn't have married to get the paralogs, and I think that was a neat touch. But it was like a few months after I finished my first playthrough that I learned that skill inheritance was a thing, and I had to make a second file just to give optimal skills, since I didn't realize Gale Force was a skill because I never used Dark Flyer before, and I had to get everything optimal, which definitely put a hamper in the pacing of the game. I remember the music was just amazing, with my favorite song in this game being ID Purpose, since it's just so good. It was like the perfect final final chapter theme that it definitely fits the mood, fits the tone. I have some of the DLC for the game, and I definitely want to say that the XP DLC definitely breaks the game a little too much, but there are still some maps that were still challenging. Since I remember I did struggle in the extra map where you could recruit Aversa, and since I didn't understand mechanic, and the army of 30 versus 50 for Priam, I think. Overall, I think that Awakening deserves at least the A tier, maybe even S, but at least A, since I really like the game. Okay, moving on. Fates. I decided to split Fates into each of their stories, each of their paths: Birthright, Conquest, Revelation. So I split it up in 3. But I do want to get the biggest thing out of the way is I'm going to talk about some of the general things at the end. So let's focus more on what each one did specifically. So for Birthright, I will be putting Birthright into the B tier, since the game is easy. It's meant to be easy. I like the characters in Birthright. Maybe it's a bit of Japanese culture bias, but I really like the setting of Hoshido. I like the Hoshidans being based off of Japanese culture, and that led to the Hoshidan weapons getting different properties as well. I really like how they differentiated Hoshido to Nor. Birthright just gets B. It's like middle ground. Like, it's not that bad, but it's not that good. Like, most of the chapters is literally route the enemy, kill the boss, or seize the throne. Mostly route the enemy or defeat the boss, basically. And the characters, I think, they're pretty memorable. Like, with the influx of characters we got from Fates in Heroes, mostly the Royals, it definitely made it feel like we want to stop seeing them. I do want to say that Ryoma is one of my favorite characters, just because I like his character. I remember reading all his supports and I really liked it, but it gets B tier. I would put Birthright in A, but the map design is great. I like Dragon Veins. I like the settings usually. It's mostly just, it's too easy. That's it. Like, I think I started a Lunatic run, and even then, it's still too easy. So, I'm just gonna move on. So for Conquest, I'm gonna put this in A tier. Conquest is basically the opposite of Birthright, and I like it. This side is meant to be hard, and it definitely delivered. Remember, I played this on hard, and I was struggling, but I remember that this game, Conquest, definitely delivers on it being hard, and reminds you of the original, you know, the GBA games, the games before Awakening, where it's much harder to get XP, resources are limited, and all that. I really like that. The chapter objectives are also nice. I like that too, and I will have to say I hate Ninja Hell, the Den of Betrayal. That was one of the worst chapters to deal with, but in design, I like it, but actually playing it, I hate it. I don't really like the cast of Conquest though, I will admit. The cast of Conquest did not hold up that well to me, especially since 3 of the units that you get in Conquest are literally taken straight from Awakening, which is Laszlo, Selena, and Odin. And I will still give it A just because it definitely delivers on being hard and being a challenge, and I actually like that. Since after playing Birthright, because I played Birthright first, I got Conquest after. Conquest definitely was, I'll say, a palate cleanser. Now, Revelations. I'm gonna put this in C for now, because here's the thing. I don't know which game I hate more, Revelations or Binding Blade. I want to put them together, but I know that there's a clear difference between hating these two. And with Revelations, I hate how unbalanced this game is. This game was not balanced. Like, who thought it was a good idea to give you all these units at once? On top of, so basically you have the entire cast of Birthright, plus the entire cast of Conquest, plus all their kids from both games. And that gives you like at least 50 units to choose from, I think, or about 50 to choose from, and it just makes it a pain. I will give it points that I like some of the maps and chapter goals being unique from, of course, Birthright, but also different from Conquest. I like the general feel of it, but this game was not balanced. I hate how they also tossed in a 2-chapter run right in the middle. So the chapter where you get Ryoma and company, followed by Xander and company, is a 2-chapter run. So that means if you want to be one of the players who wants to keep your whole army alive, you'll be dealing with underleveled new units, trying to keep them alive, and trying to clear it. So if Xander unexpectedly dies in the 2nd chapter, well, you have to start back from the chapter where you get Ryoma to join you, and all over again. And I don't know why they thought it was a good idea to put a 2-chapter run in the middle. The unit balance is just awful, and I'm just gonna leave it there. So there are a few things I avoided talking about these 3 games, or just Fates as a whole. That's the story. The story sucks. It's just not good. The music is good though, but Lost and Dots on alone got really annoying after a while, and I really like the Dragon Vein mechanic. There are things that Fates did right, and there's a lot of things that it did wrong. So that's why I decided to split these paths up, just because there's things that they did right, but also did wrong. Okay, let's move on to the last 3DS game, Echoes: Shadows of Valentia. Now this game, I'm giving it S tier. It's surprisingly my favorite game to date for the series, and I think I really like the simplistic nature of it, of how it's a remake of Gaiden, but it's really keeping things pretty simple. There's a lot of things I could talk about. I could probably make a whole video talking about why I like Echoes, but I'm gonna try and keep it pretty brief. I like the fact that you have two armies to control, Ulm and Celica, so you switch between both armies. I like how the cast is small enough too that they can also incorporate pretty much full voice acting to this game. So it definitely helps give life to the characters as well, especially with how the supports are back to the old school GBA supports. I really like that too. The map design, however, is the worst thing, because it's a remake of Gaiden. I think they try to keep the maps intact as much as they can to the original feel. So Ulm gets like big plains. I'm okay with that. They're not bad. But when it comes to Celica, she got the short end of the stick. You got those desert levels, which suck. They're slow. Then you get swamp levels, which suck because they're slow. It's just, I wish they improved the map design, but there's so much that they did right. Like, the characters are one of the best. They are given so much extra depth in this remake that I really like it. But I can't go on without mentioning the music. The music is just phenomenal. What Lies at the End and Twilight of the Gods are definitely my favorites, and I also like the inclusion of some Echoes exclusive characters. Like, I think Berkut is definitely one of the best decisions to make, and he definitely adds to the villains of Echoes, because I think the original of Gaiden lacked notable villains. Another thing that I like is Milla's Turnwheel. So because I am someone who really wants to try and keep everyone alive, it definitely makes things easier to just Turnwheel back to the start of a chapter, start of a turn, then to reset the entire chapter in Awakening and Fates. So with the Turnwheel being introduced in Echoes, it definitely makes resetting certain points much less frustrating and easier. And I'm gonna leave it there. It's just too good of a game that I could just keep rambling on about. Let's move on. Fire Emblem 16, Three Houses. The first game on the Switch, and a pretty much anticipated game when it was announced. And I'm also going to put this into the A tier. There's a lot of things that this game does right, and what I want to say is experimented with, and a good chunk of it delivered. The game is really great. The characters are very memorable in some way, for the better or worse. Marianne's best girl. And the story is not bad, actually. The story, I like how the story is pretty much dictated by the house you choose, but the most apparent flaw, like, I want to put this in S, but I have to leave it in A because the most apparent flaw is the first half of the game, White Clouds, the Academy phase. The Academy phase isn't that bad. It gets you to bond with the characters, you know, and such, but I feel like it drags on for too long. Like, on repeat playthroughs, even on New Game Plus, it feels like it just drags on too long. Until you reach the war phase, the time skip, and then that's when everything really gets good. And it also sucks because you have to play the game 4 times, because there are 4 paths, in order to experience everything. I do want to make note of the DLC, the expansion pass, Cinder Shadows. Cinder Shadows definitely did a lot. That is one of the best DLC I've experienced, since the DLC story was pretty good, it adds extra depth, and I think that it deserves a play, and that that people who own houses should pretty much pick up the expansion pass if they really want more content on top of this. Alright, next is Fire Emblem 17 Engage. And this of course goes into Never Played because this video is being made and will be released before the game comes out. But based on Nintendo Japan's Twitter and Serene's Forest translations, this game, if I want to put a rank on it right now, based on everything on the pre-release promotional material I'm seeing, I want to put this in S. Like, it'll go alongside Echoes as probably one of the best because it definitely looks a step above Three Houses. But the game hasn't come out yet, so I would like to get a fair opinion on it after I play it. But if I had to give a rank right now, it would be S, but for fairness, it'll be a Never Played. Anyways, now we have the 5 spin-off games that I found. So, first is this Japanese exclusive one of Fire Emblem Archanea Saga. Never played. I never heard of it until I had to look up spin-offs, and I have no interest because I just never heard of it. And it's also Japan exclusive, but I never heard of this. I don't even know what it is. Someone in the comments, please explain it to me. What this is. Yeah. Next is Heroes. Heroes is a gacha game, and to be honest, I'm a bit torn. I want to put this in A or B. I don't know which one I want to put it in, because there are valid reasons why I want to go into both. I'm not going to make a tier separate, so I think I'll give it the higher end, which is A. So, it's a gacha game. It's basically you roll for the characters that are in the game that your favorite characters that got added into the game there. It still captures the feel of Fire Emblem, so simplified mechanics, but I definitely like Heroes just because of mostly the characters that get added, like not the added, but new characters that they introduce, I should say. They're nice, like with each book. Like I think we're on book 7 right now. More characters, more original characters getting introduced, the more I actually like it. And it's also because of the art, which each character, they show you the artists, and some of the artists I like. Like there's another reason why I like Echoes, but Hirari's art style for Echoes was amazing. So when Alm and Celica won their respective Choose Your Legends, they brought back Hirari to draw their Brave Alt, and I really like it. The only thing that stops this from being S is the amount of power creep in the game. So a unit released at launch is gonna mostly struggle in terms of like usefulness with newer units that are released today. Like that's the nature of the game though, of power creep, so I don't want to go too much in on that, but I'll just keep it simple now and say I like the game, and it definitely is pretty good. So now, the next game is Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FV, the so-called crossover between Fire Emblem and Shin Megami Tensei. I have played this on the Switch, the Sharp FV Encore, the Switch re-release, and after experiencing it, I'm also going to put this in A tier. I think that by itself, it's actually a good game and it's underrated. I think one of the biggest reasons it failed is the incorporation of both Fire Emblem and Shin Megami Tensei elements, and the lack of information that they give us about the development, so that when this actual crossover came out, I think a lot of people were like, what the hell is this? So by treating, I think that even though it has Shin Megami Tensei and very little Fire Emblem elements in, this game is, if you take the fact that it's supposed to be a crossover out, it's a really good game. it just did not deliver in the expectations. I think the expectations were just pretty high, or just it didn't deliver what we would expect. So I could make a video in more detail about why I like this and such too, and why I think it failed. But to keep it brief, is the story was alright. I like the start of it, but I didn't like how it ended up. And this isn't just a purely an idol game. This is a game about the Japanese entertainment industry. Since I thought it was just about idols and, you know, about singing and all that, but it was actually about the Japanese entertainment industry after playing the game. So that's how what led me to actually appreciate the game a bit more, because it's not just idols. And visually, it looks really great. Of course, the NPCs are just like colored husks or whatever you want to call it. But the main characters, they definitely are pretty good. They're memorable. And I think what keeps this game going for me is the music and gameplay. The music, like the actual songs, like Reincarnation, they are amazing, and I appreciate why they decided not to dub the game. The gameplay is also nice because in combat, you exploit a weakness and you get to start session attacks, and I really like it since it's pretty innovative and just stands out among the other JRPGs out there, and it definitely keeps me going because it's always like, how high can that combo go? One thing I do need to address is censorship, and a lot of things did get censored in this game from the Wii U to the Switch game, because the Switch version is based off of the English censored version on the Wii U version, and I definitely wish that this gets a sequel. As much as I know it's not going to, it's just wishful thinking that this game would get a sequel. I hope they would be able to revisit this IP, but it's very unlikely, so I definitely think this game is underrated, and like I give it an A tier, but I can go into another video detailing all this, like how I could make another video detailing why I love Echoes a lot. Okay, second to last game to talk about is Fire Emblem Warriors, and I am gonna put this in a D tier. It's by far the worst spin-off in this list, and for a reason. Initially, it's the first Musou game that we have for Fire Emblem, and I thought it was pretty nice. It was only after I finished the game that I realized how grindy it was and how copy-paste every single unit was, except for a few. So the story was bland from what I remember. I didn't really like it. Gameplay is a hack and slash. It's a Musou game. I actually enjoyed the gameplay, but there's the characters. The characters, they're all locked to their own personal class, and they're actually based off of another character, so except for exceptions. So basically, it's like, why would you play as Owain when you could play as Ryoma? Why would you play as Hinoka when you can play as Sita or Cordelia? Why play as Chrom when you can play as Lucina, and vice versa? And you can get where I'm going. A lot of these characters are just copy-paste of each other, and the only difference is their stats, and I just don't think it's fun, because why would I play as Owain when I could just keep playing as Ryoma, who I've actually have more skills on compared to Owain? And the skill system is also pretty bad. I think you have like either 6 or 8 skills to equip total, and the way you obtain it is pretty bad. Character progression is also bad because you have to keep farming materials. Maybe this could be attributed to the fact that I never really played an official Dynasty Warriors game before. So there's that, and I just think that this game had so much potential, but the choice of characters to include, plus the way it got stale pretty fast, is definitely one of the worst games out there for Fire Emblem. Probably the worst, just straight up the worst spin-off in my opinion. And lastly, Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes, the second Musou game that we got, and I will say this game is a step above what the original Warriors was, and I think 3 Hopes gets the S tier. This is by far one of the most fun I've had in a spin-off, and I think it definitely delivers. It's probably, I think, the best spin-off. Firstly, instead of having a mixed cast of characters from different games in the original Warriors, the cast is confined to 3 houses with some downgrades, but also promotions of generic characters or unmentioned characters and such. So it sucks that we can't play as Gustav, Hanneman, Cyril, Alois, which feels weird. But it's great that we get to see Holst, we actually get to see Linhardt and Kaspar's father, and like the cast is just somewhat expanded on. But I think the Rehopes does have it going when that the cast is much more confined compared to the original Warriors. The story is also much better. It's set in an alternate timeline to 3 houses, so it makes perfect sense that it craft its own story, and especially how the story plays out too. The progression system is also good, since instead of getting materials to unlock skills and just all these things for your characters like in Warriors, you get materials to expand your base camp, and that leads to more bonuses or more things you can do, and that can also lead to better character progression as well too, since you just need to spend gold to unlock some of the things you would compared to Warriors. And one of the best things that they did in 3 Hopes as well is that each character is unique in some way compared to Warriors. Warriors, the characters got very stale, while in 3 Hopes, you might have them in the same class to have the same combos and such, but they have their own traits that make them more unique, since they have their own personal skill, and that definitely gives it more flavor and more depth compared to how you choose a character in Warriors. I also like how supports and just the environment in cutscenes as well is a step above 3 houses too, where it's not just like a JPEG or PNG of a background, and the characters actually feel a lot better just visually. And of course, I forgot to mention this in the Warriors game, but Warriors has a great soundtrack. I like the remixes, and 3 Hopes did the same thing with the songs that they got from 3 houses to remix, like Full and Winds. Hearing that at the start of the game definitely sounds really good. I finished all 3 paths of the story, and I really like it. I think before I close this out, I think I do want to switch Binding Blade and Revelations around, and I think I'll move Heroes down to B just because of power creep, and just sometimes it just becomes unplayable. And I think this will be my final tier list before Engage comes out. And with that, those are all my thoughts and my reasons on every Fire Emblem game, including the spin-offs, and I hope that the release of Engage definitely helps bring in more people. I want to say thank you for watching this. In the comments, please tell me what your thoughts are on this, your thoughts on each game and such, and I hope that some of you can also create your own tier lists and share it with me, because I'm actually curious. And since this was my first video, any video tips can also be appreciated. Please don't give me too much slack. This is still new to me, and I hope that I can make more videos like this in the future. And with that, thank you all for watching, and I hope you all have a great time and enjoy the release of Engage whenever that comes out. Alright, and with that, DevotedOblivion out.